Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to another session of Teacher Talk Time. It's so nice to see all your faces this time, which is very exciting for us. It's so nice that even after so many years, we still keep getting new people to join this wonderful group of teachers from so many different backgrounds, and we're all just here to share and learn together. So nice to see you all. So welcome. This time, our TTT's focus is teaching speaking beyond just functional language, and what are some lesser known and taught sub skills that are not explored as much in the classrooms. And we have three very talented, experienced, amazing trainers who are going to be giving us their insights on this. And followed by, I'm sure they're open to questions, and and anyone else is also will is you can share your experiences with this topic as well. So, without further ado, we can get started. So, I think Vani will be going first, Kale Vani, and I'm going to quickly introduce her to those who don't know her. Kalaivani is a very passionate educator and she calls herself a lifelong learner. And she's got over 5,000 hours of experience teaching English to learners from so many different countries, 60 plus countries. And she currently is collaborating with some of the most respected international platforms like British Council, Learn Light, and Bridge Education Foundation. She's got a Cambridge CELTA and an International House Train the Trainer certification, and she's empowered thousands of students to achieve their language goals. She's got an engineering background, which she believes adds a very unique analytical lens to her work. And she has over 150 hours of mentoring experience, and she's really committed to empowering her fellow educators. So thank you, Vani, for being here today and agreeing to present on the topic given to you. And the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for your kind introduction, Nikita. And likewise, it's really exciting to see teachers from the same field. And what's more inspiring is the way you are investing time, especially on a weekend when most of the people who are working all the week would prefer, lying down on their couch or spending time with their family or going out at least. But it's nice to see that you're investing time for mutual exchange of knowledge. And it's a pleasure to be part of this community. Thank you so much. And again, thanks for inviting me to present on this topic. As I said, as you said earlier, I've always looking forward to exchanging knowledge. And I had actually mentioned this in one of my previous interviews that I feel I have a sparrow brain, I cannot store anything inside, but when I learn something new, I want to share that with someone. I have to speak that to other teachers and ask them, how did this work in your class and what happened? What were the students' reactions and things like that? And that's how we learn about different techniques. So yes, I'm very much excited to present on this topic. And before I start presenting, there is a poll for you all teachers. And Nikita, can you please launch the first question?
Yes, I'm going to.
So you can see a question popping up on your screen and you'll have multiple options there. So just go with the ones that is true for you.
Can you all see it?
Can you please confirm if you can see the question?
Yes, we can see both the questions. Yeah.
Fantastic. The first question goes, what do your learners struggle with most during their speaking tasks? Is it generating ideas, organizing thoughts, speaking fluently, or using varied vocabulary, or staying on the topic? Choose what is true for your learners. I mean, we all have varied experiences. And the second question, which of these do you think students need most in real world speaking? Nikita, could you please check if everyone has submitted
Yes, I'm just sharing the answers with you
poll
on
results?
WhatsApp. Yeah, so you can see them. You got it?
Yes.
Uh,
And I think there's an option for you to share it. I mean, can share it here live.
Hold on, let me check. Yes, okay, got it. Yeah.
Okay, so there we go. So we have the results of the poll. And for the first question, what do the learners struggle with most? I think we have majority saying organizing thoughts and speaking fluently, and then goes generating ideas, varied vocabulary, staying on the topic. That's interesting. So I think we have chosen a great topic for discussion today. Most of you will get the answers by the end of this session. And for second question, which of these do you think students need? Confidence. Okay, that's majority of you saying it's almost 53%. And then we have for fluency, 20%, accuracy, 13%. All right, we'll also discuss a few things on these poll result by the end of my presentation. So let's see if my presentation answers, if you had any questions in mind regarding this poll. So we'll talk about where does this confidence come from? How do they even know that they are confident or not? Let's see. So today's presentation on teaching speaking as a strategy. Can you please confirm if you're able to see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Once again, a warm welcome to all the teachers. So this presentation will be exploring different strategies to empower our ESL, EFL students to become more independent and confident speakers by focusing on the often overlooked process of speaking. We generally focus on the task. We want our students to speak by the end of the session. So we focus on the task, but what about the process? How do we prepare them to reach there? And why does this really matter? Why should we be moving beyond performance? Why is performance not just the target? So Nation and Newton, in their book, Teaching ESL, EFL, Listening and Speaking, has recommended strategy training in speaking as a way to encourage learner autonomy. This is mainly because many speaking lessons emphasize the final output. For example, it can be a debate or a presentation, but without explicitly teaching how to get there. So students often lack the instruction in the crucial stages of preparing or managing or even reflecting on their output. So in simple, what is missing is planning, monitoring, and evaluating. What I'm speaking is from the student's perspective. As teachers, we plan the lesson, we manage it, and we do. But what is it from the students? And what is the goal is to make our students independent and confident speakers. So by teaching these processes, we are helping them to develop lifelong speaking skills and self-reliance. So they don't have to be looking for a teacher to give feedback. So we'll see how they can reflect on their own speaking and build confidence. And how do we do that? How do we get there? So basically, I'm dividing this into three broad categories. So what we can do before speaking, that is pre-speaking stages, and during speaking, and after speaking, that is post-speaking. So pre-speaking stages, we can include apart from teaching, presenting the language items. So basically in ESL lessons, we do have the stages, right? We lead in and then we present it. And we might have some controlled practice activities. And then we are moving towards the final freer practice. So this is exactly where we can include these items. So before we put them to the task, what we can do is to let them brainstorm, use ideas like mind mapping. So basically, you are letting them to generate and connect the ideas visually even before they begin speaking. So this will help them build confidence on also a strong foundation. And by structuring the ideas, you are giving them um, kind of a guide, for example. So you guide them to organize their thoughts into a clear structure. So whether it is introduction and then the main points and conclusion. And finally, you're also encouraging them to set some personal goals. So when I say the personal goals, it's not the lesson goals, it's the teachers. right? But what about the student? The student might have their own lesson goals. It might not be directly linked to that particular lesson, but it can be their own goals for speaking. It might be something that they missed out in their last speaking class, or maybe something that they faced in their real time conversation. So it could be their pronunciation or their body language or anything that they want to focus in that particular speaking part. So we are going to direct them towards setting a personal goal. For this, you can give them some sheets. This is the simplest that I could bring up, but we can actually design one that, because once we know our lesson and we know our learners better, you can include what items might be useful for your learners. So basically what we need is the topic. Let's say here is an example about discussing favorite hobby, and the key ideas. What are the things that the learner might have to think to talk about their hobby? So why they love it, when did they start this, and what are the benefits, or how long they've been, this has been their hobby or something like that. So when they think on these ideas, they have a clear content, for example. So to speak about the topic and the language to use. So mostly we might be introducing some of these language items in the lesson, but they might also have something in their mind to use during the lesson. So when they have all these in a structured format as a form, they have a clear picture. So with this, they might not end up saying, I was thinking of that, but I didn't say that. Oh, I wanted to say that, but I couldn't, that didn't flash my mind or something. So they don't run out of ideas when they speak, or there is everything in front of their eyes as an image. So basically the brainstorming session helps for that. And next part is while speaking. So how do we help them while speaking? So this can be mainly by monitoring. And usually we teachers monitor, as always. We monitor, we make notes of their mistakes, and we give feedback and all that. But what about the learners? Do we encourage them to self-reflect? And how do we structure that? Again, we need a strategy, right? So helping them to self monitor is where they listen to their own speech, or they identify their own mistakes. And sometimes that will also help them to make on spot corrections. So this is mainly to build a real time awareness. And by encouraging, if it's a group class, well and good, you have a lot of peers with them, and you can also encourage them to track specific elements. Now you can also set some goals for their peers, look for some interesting vocabulary, or make notes of some interesting pronunciation or some expressions that they use. So they have something that they can reflect once the speaking activity is done. So they'll be able to give mutual feedback. It's like giving and taking. And finally, if even though if it is not a group class, or even if it is a one-to-one session, encouraging the learners to record is like giving them more control. So because sometimes they might reflect on a few points during the class, but later when they watch the recording, they can find something else also from the recording. So this will allow them for a deeper and more objective analysis of their speaking performance. So this can be done during speaking. And a sample checklist perhaps can give something like this, where the peers can make notes on interesting vocabulary, and also make notes whether the speaker is using examples, giving examples for each of the item that they mention. And what about the confidence level? You can also ask them to give a rating from 1 to 5. What would be your rating for the speaker? And one improvement suggestion. So there are also techniques called as 2 stars and a wish. Have you all heard of this? Familiar? But so basically they give 2 stars, that is 2 good feedback, basically something that has impressed them. Okay, pronunciation was good, or confidence level was good, or the language expression, something like that. And then 1 wish is a constructive feedback which they can work on. That's the checklist. And this is for the speaker itself, the self-assessment rubric. So it can be anything that they want to work on, basically their fluency, vocabulary use. So once they finish speaking, they have to reflect, write about what interesting language item they were able to include, and how was the pronunciation. Did they achieve their self goals, what they had set before the speaking part? And also give them rating. How much would you rate yourself? And this will help them reflect and assess their progress. So they are taking ownership of their learning journey. This is a simple rubric, but we can find a lot when you Google for it. and finally, post-speaking part. And this is mainly for evaluation and growth. So basically, once you have the feedback from the peer and also the self-assessment from the speaker, now it's time for the teacher. So you provide feedback aligned with the criteria. So our main focus is on the areas of growth. So mainly you focus for the specific successes. It could be from the lesson item, from their specific goals, and from their peer feedback. It's like you're going to give a cumulative feedback, right? And we are basically equipping them with the rubrics so they can evaluate their own performance, and that will foster self-awareness. And that's how you can set and establish some new speaking goals. Maybe from this, they carry over for their next speaking class or the next task, maybe the next session that you meet, but they have something to reflect on, the areas that they need to work on. And yes, so these by planning on the strategies for a speaking task, we empower independent speakers. So we teach students to plan, monitor, and evaluate their speaking. By this, we equip them to become truly independent and confident communicators. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. But before I wrap up, I have a question for you all. Please type your answers in the chat. So what's one small change you'll try in your next speaking lesson to help students plan, monitor, and evaluate? Question is also in the chat box. Please drop your answers in the chat. And in the meantime, we can actually turn on your mics and share your thoughts.
If anyone has any questions about the session or just in general, you can ask.
Yeah.
This was a very informative presentation, Kalevani. But my question is, since I teach in a lot of colleges, 60, 70 students in a class, then see, normally, to be honest, there's also a culture issue involved. And with that culture issue comes an ego issue as well, right? If I'm corrected by my peer, then, I'm not very happy because we are both in the same class, we're both the same age, we're both in the same department, so on and so forth. So how do we bridge that gap?
That's an interesting question, but I might not be familiar with the college atmosphere, but at least the ego part that you say, I'm quite familiar with that because I've been teaching business English classes. So
I was
mine
going
is
to
kind
add
of
corporate as well. I'm sorry to cut you off. I was going to add
yeah.
corporate as well. It slipped my mind now that you said business English. I do face that in corporate too, and especially when I do a peer uh, feedback and stuff. Why should I listen to him when he's also a student in the class? That's normally a reply. So yeah, sorry to cut you off. Please go ahead.
No problem, no worries at all. So as you say, we have these different levels of people joining. So for example, in the same group, I might have a manager and I might also have someone from his team, right? So this hierarchical level actually causes a problem, but that happens might be maybe during the beginning stages of the courses. But once they have attended at least 5 to 10 sessions together, there is a good rapport among the group. And when you follow a similar pattern, if there is such mutual exchange of feedback, if you incorporate the feedback culture from the beginning, they are actually set into that mindset. So they know that, okay, they'll be getting some feedback from their peers as well as their teacher.
Oh, okay, I've done that. I mean, I've always set expectations at the beginning, but as you said, there's always that, seniority, and I'm your manager, and people are scared, especially employees, subordinates, if I should use the word. They're pretty scared. If I give my manager a feedback, he or she is going to smile in front of us, but I'm going to have to work a couple of hours overtime after this class is over.
And it depends on the feedback also, right? As you say.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically once the rapport is established and they know that this is going to be the pattern of the classes, and we are free to give feedback, and if they are ready for that mutual exchange of knowledge, then I think that should be smooth enough.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. We have some wonderful responses in the chat. Let me quickly go over that. The peer observation checklist idea, 2 stars under wish. Yes. Self-evaluation, peer evaluation, brainstorming. Okay, Nikita says she always skipped that. Uh-huh. 2 stars and 1 wish. Setting personal goal. Fantastic. Learners to set their own personal goal. Yes.
Okay.
Great. So majority we have with the 2 stars and a wish.
Yeah, I think that was
All
quite
right.
an interesting addition
Yeah.
from the presentation. Anyone
that
else
was
has
good.
any other questions?
Questions, comments. I'm open to feedback. I'm not going to say, I'm an experienced teacher. How can you say that? No, I want to learn from you guys. So is there any other techniques that you follow when to give feedback or to get feedback, encouraging mutual peer feedback? What do you do in your classrooms?
Do you mind if I say something here? Just
Not at all. Please go
maybe in
ahead, Sita.
response to that question, just an idea that sometimes I use is, and maybe in response to what Mario asked as well, possibly giving them a little bit of training on how to give feedback. Or like a session or a checklist just on how to do feedback, so that there is a little bit more of this is my chance to say something about another person, but have it be useful feedback. So just kind of strategizing and
Absolutely.
doing some
Yeah.
examples with them, so when they actually do give peer feedback, it could be a little less antagonistic, possibly.
That's a good point. Yeah. So they don't have their previous vengeance in mind. Like, okay, you told me this in my last speaking session. Let me tell you now.
Exactly. So they kind of understand
So,
the reason for feedback and how to do it.
yeah, that's a good idea to give them some, maybe, kind of another rubric that they can follow,
Yeah.
how to give feedback. Absolutely. Thanks for adding that, Sita.
No problem.
Super, thank you.
Right.
I mean, more thoughts and questions can be shared on the WhatsApp group as well, which is always active. But thank you so much, Kalaimani, for that wonderful presentation. I think we've all taken something useful that we're going to try in our lessons from next time. Thank you so
Thank you
much
very
for your
much.
time again. And we'll move on to our next speaker, who is I think everyone here knows her very well. And she has been a part, Sita is the next speaker, I'm sorry, I forgot to say that. She has been, I think, a part of TTT ever since the first session. And she is one of those members of TTT who, if you ask her, Sita, can you do this? Yes. Without even knowing what it is, yes, and she's always ready to help and contribute. And she's also very, very modest. When I asked her, I want to give a small introduction of you. Can you share, your experience and everything? This is what she sent me. She said she is an English language teacher and teacher trainer. She's worked in different contexts, teaching a range of course types. And at the moment, she works as a freelance center tutor. This is all she said, but there is a lot more to Sita than just this. I think everyone personally also knows that about her, and we're just so enthusiastic and so happy that you keep contributing to our, small initiative, and that you're here all the time for us. So thank you so much for that, and it's over to you.
Thank you so much. I felt that it covered all the key aspects of things that I've done. So that's why you got that introduction. I love being part of this because I think it's such a nice idea to have teachers get together, because it can be quite a solo profession in the classroom. It's just you and your students. So this, even though it happens now only once in 3 months, which is a bit sad, but it's nice to have that and be able to share ideas. So thank you for having me. I'm kind of going to continue from where Kalaimani left off, and she's already talked about one of my ideas. So I'll come back to that when I'm talking about some different strategies to use. But I was going to look at interaction management. So often when we do speaking skills, what are some of the speaking skills we usually teach or do with our students? You can just call them out, whatever you focus on. So speaking skills, what do we normally do? Besides, I mean, we've obviously today's topic is beyond functional language. So functional language is a big part of speaking skills. Anything else that we normally look at?
Pronunciation.
Yeah.
Organizing thoughts, coherence.
Yeah.
Fluency.
Discourse markers.
Yes, discourse markers is one I'm going to come back to as well. Balaji, sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Fluency.
Okay, yes. Anything else? We also tend to look at specific skills or types of speaking, right? So we do interview skills or public speaking or presentation or conversation. But I
Customer
think
service.
sorry?
Customer service.
Customer
Basic.
service. So in different contexts, different kinds of interaction. But often I find maybe because we don't have time or it's not in the syllabus, but we tend to leave out sort of the nuances of an interaction, which comes naturally to people who speak it as a first language, but maybe not to a student who's learning it. So today I wanted to focus on some of those more nuanced aspects of speaking skills. So not just training them in organizing their thoughts for a particular type of speaking, and not just the functional language they need for that type of speaking, but what else do we look at, okay? So if we take something like conversation skills, maybe just type in the chat box. You've been part of good conversations and you've been part of bad conversations, you've been a part of boring conversations. So what do you think makes a good conversation? Just a couple of points in the chat box, whatever you think. I love it. You're doing half of my work for me. You've said all the things that I needed to say. Okay, so we've got a lot of people talking about active listening and listening to each other, but also the topic being interesting and dialogue. So making sure there's give and take in both or all people are involved. Okay. All right, good. So active listening, everyone's talked about active listening, and most good conversations have active listening. So active listening, you have your verbal and your non-verbal cues. Your non-verbal cues are as important, and so that's something I think is useful to teach students. I'll show a small video clip, if it works, of what happens if you don't have some of those cues and what a conversation can look like. Verbal cues, you've got things like back channeling, you've got things like affirmation of a point or a topic, discourse markers, someone said earlier, and just the right noises. If I don't know the technical term for that, but just making the right noises, doing the ms and ahs and ohs, even that's kind of an important aspect of having those useful and meaningful conversations, okay? So I wanted you to think about, when we say back channeling, what kinds of things do we do when we back channel? Have you heard that term before, or is it a new term? Okay, anyone want to say what back channeling is, what they think it is?
Is it like paraphrasing the key things that they've said or pulling out like keywords?
That's part of it, yes. So it's kind of, yeah, Mary's written repetition. So when someone is speaking, you're either repeating or paraphrasing. Why do we do that though?
To show that
assurance that
the
you've got
speaker
it
we're
right.
listening, we're following.
Very good, yeah. To show that we're listening. If you just kind of sit there and don't say anything, they'll kind of fizzle out after a point. So back channeling in terms of repetition or paraphrasing, very important. So a time when we do that often is when someone gives us directions. If you ask for how do I get to so-and-so place, they say, okay, you go straight, take the second left and the third right. And you go, oh, okay, second left, third right. So it's a way of showing that you've listened, but also a way of maybe helping you remember. It can also be a way of checking. So if you're not sure, you paraphrase and just double check that you've understood the right meaning. So that's a useful technique for students to know, is how to back channel. Another aspect of back channeling is the affirmations. So when someone is talking, we say, yes, okay, right, oh yeah. Okay, so they might sound odd at first when you're training students, and it may be a bit awkward for them to do that when they have to practice, but eventually it becomes a bit more natural. Okay, one of the things I've tried more recently is doing a sentence and asking students to think about how they would respond in their first language. Because often in English, I know there's a lot of controversy around do we use translation and L1 and things like that, but often when they're doing it in English, they're so focused on I need to speak accurately and I need to be confident and clear in the pronunciation that they forget some of the more natural aspects of an interaction. So, for example, if I were to tell you, so think in your first language, whatever your first language is, just keep that in mind for a second. Take English out for a second. And imagine you're having a conversation with me over the phone and I tell you, hey, I got a new job. Think about what your response would be in your first language. Is it immediately just congratulations, well done, or are there other aspects that come to mind?
No, not congratulations for sure.
Okay, Ambika, what other?
So for me, it would be Malayalam. So I would say, oh, Addipoli, like, where is
Right.
it? Like, my response would be more of excitement for you.
Yeah.
Then maybe congratulations follows it.
Yes, okay, good. Anyone have something similar or maybe something different to add?
Yeah, something similar. I would say Sherikim. You really got it. Sherikim kittiyo.
Yes,
So
good.
that's the kind of excitement.
Even I had the same thought.
Good. Okay, anyone else?
Maybe in Tamil, I don't know how many of you use this, like the slang way of saying, "Hey, semma news." I know we say semma,
Yeah.
Yes.
and then we congratulate actually.
Very good. Okay, so we all have something that comes out naturally first. And I think in English that's often missing because we're teaching it like a language. If you speak English as a first language, it's there. But if you're teaching English and students are learning it, then they might tend to miss it. So that's another strategy that you can teach them. So think about, so what would we do in English then? If you think about this in English, you're all first language speakers of English. What would you say?
Oh, really?
It's amazing.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Very
Often there's a lot of noises, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of ohs and wows and a and ooh. If
Yeah.
you have, yes, wow, wonderful. Kalevani says students from around the world. So if you have Asian learners, and I class them generally, but often Koreans and Japanese, they do a lot of in all
The
of
ah
their
sound.
yeah.
I have heard this Japanese. They have a typical tone. I'm not able to make it actually. It's like a long ah. That actually includes everything for surprise or anything.
Everything, yeah.
They always have the ah sound.
So often they do it to themselves when they're thinking of something. They've said an answer and then they go, like they've just, am I right? Is that what I wanted to say? So there's a lot of that, which is a thing that we don't necessarily teach, but makes it sound more natural. So when they're speaking English, it doesn't sound very staccato. It does sound more natural. Okay, so that's a little activity that you can do with learners as well, is get them to think in their first language and note. Maybe if you have language groups in a class, you can put them together in their language groups and say, okay, react naturally, and then translate that into English and see what you can get. Okay. The other aspect is turn taking, which you've mentioned earlier, is making sure that everyone in the conversation has a turn. And that is something we often do. The technique, I suppose, or not the technique, the aspect that is more new to me is called, I've written it down because I'll forget, is transition relevance place, or TRP, it's called. And it's when I finish speaking, what happens next? Okay, so we often teach students, okay, you have to take turns, make sure everyone gets a chance, don't talk for too long. Okay, so now I've not talked for too long. I finish speaking. What happens next? Do I invite someone to speak?
You have to prompt somebody to speak.
Yeah, do I wait for someone to comment? If no one says anything, then what do I do? Do I continue? Do I stop? Do I walk away? So those are little aspects that could be useful for students to know as well. So how do we continue the conversation? So if it goes a little bit quiet, what can you do that helps the conversation go on? Okay, I've kind of focused mostly on conversations because that's what people do the most in English rather than public speaking or interviews and things like that. But those techniques can be used. If you're doing an interview, you might want to have a more natural interview with your interviewer rather than just say only what you've been practicing. Okay. So this TRP is often it's a split second thing. And so if you're having a conversation in your first language, it's very natural. Someone just jumps in, they comment something, they say, oh, I've had a similar experience, I feel the same way, or ask a further question. Or you might invite someone to speak, like, what do you think? Oh, did you do that? How did you feel? It's quite natural, but in English, you have to teach them, okay, these are some things that you can do. Okay, so that's a second kind of aspect. And the third one is discourse markers. So just very quickly, when we say discourse markers, what words come to mind? Besides IELTS, what word specifically comes to mind? Quick, rapid fire, whatever word comes to mind. So however, for example, is a discourse marker. What else?
Apart from,
Mm-hmm.
in
In
addition to,
spite of.
Yeah.
spite of.
Ever.
Having said that,
Although,
Mm-hmm.
Also.
Okay, so these are
So
yours.
yet.
Sorry,
Therefore.
Meghna, what was the last one?
Yet.
Yes, okay. So these are
Yet.
all,
Yet.
Mhm.
Biting.
Yeah, these are all discourse markers we use because we've learnt them, and we use them often in writing. What do we do when we're speaking though? You don't very often hear people say, yeah, Esther's kind of got it. You don't often hear people say, well, in spite of or in conclusion, unless they're doing a speech or a presentation. So if it's a more natural conversation, what are some other types of discourse markers?
Start with well.
Yes, exactly.
How
I
can I
often
put
start
this
with
across?
so.
Yeah. As I
How do
was
I put
saying,
it?
as I said earlier,
Yes, good. As I said earlier,
however,
Actually.
That
however,
reminds
Actually,
actually
it's
is a
very
favorite
common, I
one.
guess.
that
Actually, is a
reminds me.
very, it's a very favorite of many students. We just have to tell
actually
them how
and
to use it.
basically,
Basically, I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
very
Basically,
common.
Mhm.
actually, technically.
Yes,
And
technically.
Technically, I'm
but
from
and
Bangalore,
so.
but basically,
so
I'm staying in Chennai.
Basically.
Exactly. Like Karen has mentioned, like that comes out in the middle as well a lot. It's kind of a filler. So helping students identify other kinds of discourse markers that are more natural when you're speaking. So you can do this either through showing them videos or audio conversations, doing a demo with another teacher or with another student maybe, and then even getting them to think about, okay, what's a simpler way of, because in a conversation you might not have time for however or in addition to or moreover, which they use incorrectly anyway. Things like that. So things like, I've written a little list so I don't forget. Okay, right, so, well. These are all things we use often to start. So you know what, I was in the blah, blah, blah the other day and I did this, and it's just a natural way of starting a conversation, okay? If you want to gossip a little bit, often, well, this is what I heard. Okay, so you've got that. And then, by the way, using that correctly and accurately, by the way, is to, sort of shift to another topic or relate to something that the other person has said. So those are some useful ideas for discourse markers. So I just wrote a list of little like activities that you can do. So one is doing a translation or a first language activity. What I said earlier is give them some either sentences or scenarios, and they think about how they would respond in their first language, and then you use that and figure out how to do it in English. So that's one way to do it. Having little role play cards. Some of you would have done this way back in the day in Impact. We had active listening and activity. Everyone's already smiling and knows what I'm talking about. But you have one person who's telling a story or sharing something, and the other person's role card says, make no facial expressions, don't say anything, don't ask anything, don't even nod, don't smile. So you can imagine what the other person feels like when they're trying to tell this really excited story. And then using that for reflection and then adding to that. So that's a nice way to really make it obvious. Another one is to have observers. So this is where Kalevani's idea of that observation checklist kind of comes through, is get a conversation going, maybe 2 or 3 people, and have an observer. The checklist might be slightly different, but seeing, how many times did you interrupt? How many times did you use a natural discourse marker? How many times did you, or examples of them? And that would be a useful way to reflect and improve their skills. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is with turn taking, I forgot earlier, is acknowledging someone's what they've shared is something that I don't know if it happens everywhere, but in some cultures there's no acknowledgement. You say something and then I say something, and then you say something and then I say something. It's not really an engaging conversation then. It's just I have something to say, so I say it after you. It may be relevant, it may not be relevant. So I think that's another little activity is get everyone to sit in a group and say, okay, you share something, the next person has to listen, acknowledge, and then share what they want to share. And this goes round the room. So they get used to acknowledging, and you can give them functional language or different ways to acknowledge what somebody has said, and then say something relevant after. Okay. So yes, I didn't want to add too many things, but these were some of the key aspects I thought were more nuanced aspects of conversations and speaking more naturally without focusing on just language bits, functional language, or even pronunciation. It's how do we make the conversation meaningful and interesting and sound more natural. All right. So if there are any questions or thoughts, I guess we have a couple of minutes.
Can you just repeat what TRP stands for? I
Sure.
didn't.
Transition, relevance, place.
Thank you.
So it's where the conversation transitions and what to do in that situation.
That's the first time I've heard of that. That's really, I don't know, takes such a deep focus into what a conversation would be.
I mean, I came across it very recently as well, which is why it was kind of like, wow, this is an aspect maybe I hadn't thought about before.
Does anyone else have any questions or thoughts?
Not a question. I'd like to add one thing which Sita said about thinking in your language and then translating that into English in the conversation. I did this in one of the teacher training sessions which I did. That's when the teachers actually realized that they're not naturally using English. So once I said, think of it in Tamil. Would you do this in Tamil? What did you do when you know about a friend it's the same situation, getting a new job or a promotion? What would you say in Tamil? And they came up with it in Tamil. I said, now how do you say it in English? Then they realized, oh, so this is how we're supposed to speak. Like you said, they're just thinking of it as a language and the grammar, the verb, subject-verb agreement.
They're busy doing maths, like making a formula of a sentence rather than responding.
Exactly. Yeah. So I've seen that experience in the training session.
No, I think, and also I think a lot of focus has gone into the formulaic expressions and, set phrases to make the communication easier for them. But we kind of also make it too scripted by doing that.
And I think the knock-on effect, of what Ambika just said is when they go out into the actual world and try and use English, no first language speakers using these formulaic expressions. They're saying something completely different. So they're not really prepared for that as well as we hope they are.
Yeah. And in fact, one of the teachers told, ma'am, we sound artificial when we do it in English. I said, you'll get used to it. Then it becomes natural.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Again, if there are any more questions or discussion points on what Sita said, the WhatsApp group is always open. But thank you so much, Sita. I think that was definitely very, very interesting. And this was one of the things that I really wanted to bring to light when Ambika and I were discussing what topic we should do for this TTT. And I hope that everyone will try to include a little bit of this in their future sessions. So thank you so much. Okay, so moving on to our final segment, which is going to be presented by Thinking's very own Ambika. I really don't think she needs a big introduction over here, but I'm going to give one anyway. She is the CEO and the founder of Thinking, and she started Thinking in 2020 after a decade of experience in advertising. She realized, what, I'm not doing anything to contribute to a better world, so I'm going to switch to teaching. And she has been constantly growing and evolving and doing so many things and donning so many different hats since then. Apart from just doing everything in thinking, she is also an event coordinator for EWIT, which is an NGO for women in IT. And she works as a freelance master IELTS trainer and teacher trainer for Burlington Academy. And she's also CELTA and Delta trained. And we are very proud of her and everything that she does. And just over to you.
Thank you so much, Nikita. So half of what thinking, whatever happens, all credit to even Nikita. The amount of work that she puts in keeps me really going also. So thanks to you as well, Nikita. And this initiative to make it success at every session, I know how much of back work she also, helps me with. So and it's really amazing that this group of teachers keep coming in and bringing in a lot more teachers, and even the group being so active, and we're able to share so many different opportunities that come our way. So I think in that way, the purpose of TTT is really met. Thank you so much for that, Vani and Sita. I think you've covered most of the main elements of speaking. So I'm going to discuss something which is again a very common thing that happens in our classrooms, where there is communication breakdown. So I'm not focusing on a classroom based communication breakdown. I'm talking about conversation. Like in a conversation, let's say even outside a classroom, when you speak to a learner or when learners speak, they seem to go blank or they just freeze suddenly. Why do you think that happens? Your
Overthinking,
reasons. Yeah. Overthinking. Okay. Yeah.
pure overthinking,
Yeah.
and worrying about what other people say.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm talking from experience of, teaching in a college where, my class strength is between 50 to 70.
Right.
And when we do evaluation, especially with presentation skills or public speaking, they freeze. Not
Mm.
because they don't know, they're well prepared. They're overthinking. They're thinking, what if I make a mistake? What if I'm not speaking correctly? And what are the other students thinking of me? Are they laughing at me? Something that's way beyond their control. So I think overthinking.
Yeah. Overthinking. What else?
I think sometimes they didn't understand what you said and they're very scared to ask you to repeat or, admit that, hey, okay, I didn't understand what you said.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so.
True.
Lack of
Yeah.
vocabulary. They just get stuck.
Yes.
They
Lack
want the
of
word, but
vocab.
they don't get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah,
They
basically,
also
I mean,
compare themselves a lot. When they feel the other
Yeah.
speakers are better, they may
Yeah.
not be, but it's just their perception
True.
sort of affects their
I mean,
confidence.
I was about to say something similar, like lack of confidence, mainly due to the speakers, I mean, around them.
So,
They might lose.
Vani, when you put the poll up, that's exactly what I was thinking. A lot of people had clicked on confidence. So that was my first thought as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Lack of confidence comes with two things. One thing is inner thing, that is they might have not prepared well, or they may not have proper research or something. And maybe they're put on the spot, or they have to speak something and they go blank. That is
Right.
one way where they lose confidence. But the other thing is, maybe someone has presented really well before them, and now
Yeah.
they have this thing running in their mind that, am I going to present like them, or is mine very simple or something like that? They have,
True.
just like how Mario mentioned, overthinking and
Abs-
comparing with the other speakers.
So
absolutely.
in a
And
conversation, I
Mm-hmm.
think learners go blank maybe because they don't know the topic, lack of
Yeah.
exposure. Especially
Absolutely.
I've seen this in beginner levels
Yeah.
because they don't know what others are talking about, then they don't know what to contribute in the conversation.
Absolutely. In fact, one of the levels, like Mario, I was also thinking about the levels you said. The college students, when they go to work, the first time freshers, they don't really know to make a small talk. And when people ask them, they just go, yes, no, because they don't want to really say, because you don't know hierarchy, you don't know. So I think
I mean,
there's this fear of
it it
speaking.
happens even in college during the ice-breaking session in the first couple of days of the course. They
Right.
have no idea about small talk.
Yes.
Unless
Me,
you
that's why
talk
I'm
about.
focusing more about not public speaking, like bringing you back to just conversations. So, in
I think
conversation, why do
uh,
people freeze? Lack of vocabulary, fear.
I
Yes.
have something to add, sorry.
Yeah.
I think also in English ESL classrooms, we focus a lot on preparation before speaking, but that they don't always get that time outside. So I think spontaneity is something they lack. So they find it very difficult to contribute to a conversation.
Very true, very true.
Notice in my classrooms, of course, I teach children. So I've noticed in my classrooms, students might know, but they take a little time to articulate their thoughts and then come up. So not always they do not know, and sometimes they come up with very good ideas, but I think they just take a little while to figure out in their second language how to communicate.
Right, absolutely. So a couple of things that I think most of which we've covered. Out of this, I think I'm going to be addressing just 2 or 3 because we wouldn't have the time to cover the whole thing. So one of the points that I would like to address is the vocabulary gap. And we always tell them, okay, you widen your vocabulary, look at different forms of the words and, make it a little more vocabulary lesson. We do all of that. But apart from that, what else can we do that can make it easier for them when it comes to not getting the right word at the right time? So I have a small activity here, and this activity I've framed it for the teachers. You can adapt it for your students. So I, being a teacher, and I'm doing teacher training, and I have a very bad memory, and I don't know some terminologies of grammar and vocabulary. So this is also a little quiz for you teachers here. So I'm going to give you some clues, and you need to tell me what the terminology is. Okay. So let's go one for, and everybody can keep their mics unmute. So you can just scream out the answer when you know it. So the first one for the trial is, so it's kind of a tense, and you use it when you talk about something that started before now and is still connected to now.
Present perfect.
Present perfect.
Perfect.
Yes,
Perfect.
exactly. Present perfect. Okay. So the next one. So it's going to be grammar and vocabulary. So the next one. Let's see. Let me give you a difficult one. Okay. It's a long word, or it may be more than one word that you use often like together.
Phrasal verb.
Collocation.
Collocations. Yes, collocations. Absolutely. The next one is, it's something that you use with like if to talk about something that might happen or could happen.
Conditional.
Conditional tense.
Conditionals. The next, it's a way of making words shorter. Like when you don't want to say the whole word.
Contractions.
Yes, contractions. Absolutely. So, how did you all guess it? Was it easy to guess?
Yes.
Yes.
It was. So, what I had done really here is not know the word, at the same time, just describe the word. So, one of the strategies that I think could be effective is teaching them vague language. So when you say vague language, it necessarily needn't be just I think and these phrases or functions attached to it. It can be your approximations, teaching them kind of, sort of, around, over, where there needn't be anything definitive. And most of the times when we talk, if we notice, we give a lot of examples and we quote a lot from our experience. So that part doesn't really happen organically in a classroom setting because you usually tend to speak what is prepared. Like most of you said, we prepare and then we speak what is prepared. The continuity of a conversation happens when you can naturally provide examples or naturally link back to something that you have experienced in a similar way. So I think vague language in that sense could help in continuing the conversation and also help in communicating even when you forget a vocabulary, what you want to say. And there is a mutual negotiation of meaning between the speakers through which the other person understands. So I just said it's something, it's like, it's kind of, but immediately you all caught on to it because you are negotiating the meaning with me. I'm not one person saying this is the quiz, whereas I could have just given you this. What are the words that have opposite meanings? Then you can just say antonyms. But my point was to also bring in a natural flow where I wouldn't know, and how do I say I wouldn't know that? So I think vague language in a way kind of helps a lot in fixing this small problem of if I don't know the vocabulary, how can I express? And I think we always use how to describe things in a very adjective format of a lesson, but using it as a strategy for speaking can also help. Like description can be of any type, can be size, it can be color, or it can be the use of it. So describing in any way that you think is relevant to the speaker, again negotiating the meaning with the speaker. So that's one of the strategies that I thought we could do when we are doing the negotiation of meaning. Okay, so the next one. So this is something very interesting. So how many of you are familiar with dating apps? Hardly, like 1, 2 hands are coming up. That's
It's
great.
a pretty
I
dangerous
love this.
question to ask when I'm taking the call from home and my wife is just around the corner.
That's the point. So let's look at this question. Okay, so there's this girl who's been talking to this guy for over 2 months, and they really have kicked it off, and he seems to be a genuine guy. And he keeps asking, okay, let's catch up now. Like we've been talking for this long, and she's not very sure of it. So what should she do? Give me advice about what she should do.
She should see if they have any mutual friends and maybe find out a little bit more about him and
Okay.
then decide if she should go or not.
Okay, maybe
Check.
find mutual friends.
Check social media if he's
Mhm.
on other apps where you can see what he's up to, and
Okay.
if meeting in a public place.
Mhm.
Hire a
Maybe
private investigator.
Wow.
Okay.
Hire a private investigator. That's taking it up a
Different
notch.
level.
Yes. Yes, Karen.
Maybe
Sorry.
like go on the date, but like have your very close friends lurking somewhere in the corner, pretending to be strangers and spy on the entire date.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you get your feedback also after that.
Yes.
Okay. What about the others? Let's get some male perspective. Balaji and Mario, what are your thoughts?
I have no clue what a
How
she
much
should
money
do.
does he have?
Well, I have no clue. So what would you recommend? What should she do?
I
maybe
mean,
she makes a questionnaire and asks him and figure out, who reads his body
Okay.
language or whatever.
Right.
Talk to some of her friends who had similar experiences and say, find out which would
Right.
be a safer option. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Call his workplace and pretend somebody being
Oh,
somebody else and check
wow. Wow. We have good
Yeah, so be
stalking
the private
techniques here.
investigator. Don't hire one, you be the private investigator.
Imagine spending for a private investigator
No,
for
we
a
can do it.
date.
We can do it. I mean, whoever the girl can do it herself.
I mean,
Right.
in this day and
Absolutely. So,
age, just go out for a lunch with him and see what kind of person he is.
there are strategies even for the date. Like people choose coffee so that you don't have to stick around for too long.
You don't have to pay too much.
Pay too much. If it is not working out, can get out faster.
Yeah, and coffee in a mall, so you could, do shopping also at the same time.
Right. See?
maybe pick
Good
a
one. Sorry, who was that?
crowded place.
Meghna. Yes, absolutely. So all
Crowded
of you
place.
here, very few of you had experience in dating apps, but you were all able to contribute, right? And this is the kind of a situation most of our learners fall into in a conversation where they don't know about it. But when you all spoke, everybody was able to communicate whatever little you knew about dating. And the things that you used here was all the language that is for, I guess, I'm not sure, maybe, perhaps, most likely we would go to a, public place. So we always use hedging as a functional, language, and we use for opinions or making things polite. Hedging is usually used to reduce the rudeness or making things polite or polishing the way you talk. But here I've brought in hedging as a perspective or from a different perspective, where it solves the problem where the learner can still speak even if they don't know the topic. So, like most of us discussed in the beginning, they stop talking when they don't know the topic. And I gave you a topic intentionally, which I was hoping that most people wouldn't know, and they didn't know. So, which means that brought us to our focus language also of using hedging for making sure the continuity of communication happens. So, in this particular aspect, the things that I think will help is teaching them how to handle unknown topics. And handling unknown topics can also be exposure to some unknown topics, as well as bringing in the concept of hedging. And of everything, it's also important for them to understand that it's okay to say I'm not sure, or it's okay to say I don't know it. So in English they find it very hard to say no, because they be like, no, what if they think that I'm not capable, especially people who have just joined work, those business English classes. Yeah, yeah. Like they'll be, so you can see the confusion on their face whether to say a no or not. So I think giving them the confidence as a trainer probably can help them get closer to saying no comfortably.
There's,
So that's
I
my two
mean,
cents for today. Yes.
there's one more thing that I normally do
Sure,
in
add
case
on.
people, if I may, sorry, I don't want to.
Yes, yes, go on. No, I'm done, Mario. Yeah.
See, it's like, let's take somebody getting into a conversation. That's what we're talking about.
Mhm.
And we are sitting on a train or on a bus going on a long journey, and people are talking about a certain topic, and they include you. Let's take a common topic. Let's take cricket or football, and you're not a very big fan of cricket, or you're not. Let's say movies. Let's take movies. You're not a big fan of movies, but you read books. And somebody, let's take me. I'm the quiet guy, and you ask me, so Mario, have you ever seen this movie? So I can come back telling you, instead of saying, no, I'm not sure. I can say, I'm not a very big fan of movies, but I really love books. What about you? Do you like books? So
Yeah.
what I'm doing is I'm taking that conversation a little away from something that I don't know and bringing it to something that I know, and then getting the audience or the listeners involved with something that I know and I'm comfortable with. Just by saying I'm not a very big fan of movies though, but I really love reading books. I like fiction. Jeffrey Archer is my favorite author. What about you? Do you like reading books? So somebody would come up saying, "Oh, you like Jeff? Have you read something, whatever? Have you read Cain and Abel?" I say, "Yeah, of course I've read Cain and Abel. Do you like it?" Now, what I'm doing, I am getting into conversation with something that I'm comfortable with, and I've taken it off a little bit away from movies and things that I'm not comfortable with, and that branches out into different things. So that's another way which I feel is useful when someone doesn't know a topic, rather than just keeping quiet, like, oh,
Right.
no, I don't know, I'm not sure. But you could come across it like, I don't really watch movies, not a big fan, but I like this. Something in connection. I mean, you can't talk movies and you can't talk food. I don't really like movies, but I like eating biryani. I mean, that's something.
I think that could be actually an issue. Like what you said now could be an issue for our pre-intermediate and beginner levels, because they don't know to switch in a
Yeah,
relative manner.
correct.
They may
Correct.
switch like, okay, I just know about these three topics. Let me talk. So this, what you said exactly, could be a very possible error that could happen in real time.
Absolutely, and I've tried it when I do conversation skills, and it works.
Yeah.
It works, especially with with the youngsters. We teach the Gen Z now, music, K-pop,
Yeah.
food, and all these things. It gets them up and running, rather than people keeping quiet with a certain topic. So it works. It may not work for everyone, but it would certainly make a confident person who's not very familiar with certain things talk.
True.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Mario, and Ambika as well. Anyone has anything to add? Any questions?
Could I ask a
Yes.
question?
Sure.
Ambika, I was just wondering, for dealing with unknown topics, do you think it's useful to teach students how to ask questions? Because I find a lot of people, if they don't know the topic, either they go silent or they act like they know it and they kind of nod, and then there's not much they can contribute. So do you think asking questions might be a strategy to teach them?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think I should add on that then. Definitely it could be a strategy because I think that also gives them a little confidence that you can,
Yeah.
speak even if you don't know something.
Yeah.
True. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I was also thinking about the game Taboo. Earlier when you said talking around a topic, then Taboo is a
Yes,
nice way
yes.
to practice that.
Yeah. Because taboo, we usually keep it for vocab. We don't think of it as a, transitioning into another speaking
Yeah,
strategy there.
that's
Yeah.
true.
Hey, superb. So thank you so much, Ambika. That was really it was a lot of new things that were introduced. I think things like approximation was something that I have never heard of till today. So it's really interesting. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who came and participated today. We are so glad to see so many members in today's TTT, and I hope we continue to keep growing and we keep having this interaction and participation in the group and in further TTTs as well. So have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you all in the next one.
Right. It
You
was really
too.
nice.
you.
This is my first
Okay.
TTT, so it's nice to meet all of you. Take care. See you. Until
Thank
next
See
time.
you.
you.
Bye.
Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you,
Bye,
everyone.
Thank
everyone.
you,
Thank
everyone.
Thank
you.
Bye bye.
you.
Everyone.